Okay, should be recording. Hi, everyone. April 11th, 2023. This is the Nefio SIG automation workload subproject. So today I put on the agenda two things, but we might want to also, this was the end of the sprint, so I don't know if we want to do some hygiene for our board. We have one issue set as done, and oh, sorry, it's very noisy here. Can you just sorry, noises from outside. We have one issue as done. I just want to make a general comment. I did look over the code. It got approved before I even had a chance. We're working so fast now that issues PRs are being approved. I do have various comments, but it's not a problem. I will submit them as a new pull request for little things that I'd like to fix there, but not an issue, right? We're not working in a CI/CD environment where our changes are pushed to production and can destroy a user session. So not an issue there. It's okay to approve quickly. We can just do another round of fixes. So I might do that. Sure. So even though this is done, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, yeah, this probably is like Stefan approved it, right? So I expected some comments, of course, on that issue, but well, feel free. I don't know, like, well, probably reach out, like either directly or open another pull request, like with some, or like open another issue here. I don't know. We can discuss.
Yeah, you know, I think it's possible to do pull requests without issues as well, or I can just open, create a new issue, ad hoc improvements to the code or something like that. So it's not an issue at all. I wonder, any status report from people working on the other controllers? And it's okay if people didn't make progress.
I have my hands raised. So regarding the pull request actually getting merged without any reviews, is it a one-time exception or are you okay in general? I mean, I would recommend, at least for the sake of the community, that at least a couple of reviews happen before it gets merged.
There was reviews, you know, Prow guarantees them, but you know, we have different reviewers and maybe different standards, and you know, eventually post R1, I think we should talk about the whole process and things that we can do better. But I really don't want to slow down things too much with bogging down with that detail. But
now, from a review perspective, this is what's going to slow me down. If I don't actually use this opportunity in R1 to come up to speed on some of the methodologies and technologies, I will never be able to catch up, is my opinion as a developer, right? So this is my time, I'm thinking, maybe for others also. Like, you know, we get a chance to review it, understand it, and become familiar with it, we'll be able to contribute more coming down. Otherwise, it will be an assumption that, hey, you were part of R1, you should have already known about this, you know? That's the thing.
That's a very good point. Yeah. So my suggestion is that, you know, this is what the meeting is for. So we go over things, and if there is a case-by-case issue that we say, well, we want to expand on this more, then we'll do that. And we're actually going to do this today. Denise has agreed to go over some of the things he did and things that he discovered about the controller runtime. So I think that will be helpful to everybody. To go a bit beyond what Cube Builder gives you. I also wanted, I put on the agenda an item. So there's been talk about this image config thing that I really don't know much about. So if somebody knows a bit more about that, maybe they can say something. I think it's an extra CR that has something to do with defining the container image. Am I correct?
So
correct, yes.
Coming back to the merge thing, right? I think at least, I mean, my understanding is only the 4 core committers can merge it, right? I mean, that is you, Wim, Stephen, and John, I guess. So that is my understanding. Only four core committers can merge it, and at least there should be two approves. If that is the case, then it's fine. I totally understand the situation where there are two approvals, the code is merged, and somebody still have the comments. That's absolutely fine. To your point, that happens. But what I wanted to make sure is at least the only core committers could merge it, and at least there are two approvals.
Yeah, but I think
thinking about two approves and two.
It seems that PRAO is not enabled on this repo. It seems.
It is. It is enabled.
Oh, yeah, it must be approved. Yeah, it must be enabled. Yeah.
But normally there is a check to have two LGTMs and two approvers. So that's it's not fully enabled as it's on the other repos.
Well, yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I was surprised too. I put a /approve/LGTM. Didn't expect that to just merge right away.
What repo is this? This is
Pre-5GC.
So Pre-5GC is a bare minimum pro is enabled. Bare minimum.
Yeah.
It is just a structure is enabled. So I had a yes, obviously I had a request to Rado to completely enable it. So probably we will do it this sprint, or any one of us can do it. But I just want to make sure that irrespective of that, at least two reviews, two approves are there. And then at least one core committer has approved it.
No, we are thinking two LGTMs and two approves, Bala. This is what we discussed. Otherwise, it will be a two owners will keep approving and we'll never get a chance. So this is what I've been harping since last 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, I would suggest another thing too. If we have big pull requests, things that do maybe a bigger change, we can even add 3 approvers. I don't know if we can configure it differently per issue, but
so generally, I mean, we are in a slightly. I don't want to take too much time. I know you have agenda today.
No, this is important. This is important.
But we are in this first situation where we are putting a lot of seed code in as well. For example, if Wim's point yesterday, if the IP management code comes in, that's a huge, because that's almost like a seed code. I think we could do 2 things. We could treat it like any other seed code. For example, there's a lot of seed code from Google as well, right? So we could do that one. That gives an exception. Otherwise, let's understand one thing. We have essentially 2 sprints to get every code in, and we have 1 sprint to do all the end-to-end testing. And I understand when you say 2 LGTMs and 2 approvals, but that also puts a lot of onus on the community to act on it fast. I do not want a situation where we are just waiting for 4 approvals and the team does not act on it, and all the blocking PRs are being in a stage where it's not merged, and because of the blocking nature of it, subsequent PRs are also not merged.
That's a good point. I'm with you, Bala.
We need to be slightly practical. I mean, if somebody wants to learn the code, somebody wants to see the LGTM, they need to act on it, and we cannot simply wait for the code to merge for 4 people to put the review comments.
So what is the point of the project, right? It's the community to be able to contribute. So if we have to just go off and merge it, then the author knows the best. He can actually approve himself. So the point I'm trying to make is
not the author. I mean to say at least other than the author, there should be at least 2 more approvals. Author cannot approve. Yeah.
Correct. I see your point, but Bala, what needs to come out, get flushed out is that at this point of time, yes, we try to do it, but it shouldn't be like, we cut a bunch of corners to actually get there. That should not be the case. That's all I'm trying to say. One.
Yes.
And the other thing is, what assumptions are we making? Are we making assumptions that people are working 16 hours per day to get this? It is not, right? So, I mean, you rightly pointed out yesterday about the planning aspect as well. These are the kind of things that needs to get flushed out as well in some cases. For example, if there's a large PR to TAL, maybe if it's a large PR, it's not just 3 approvers. Maybe we should look at breaking down the PR into small consumable chunks as well that can be reviewed better.
Well,
so those are the kind of things.
Right. I actually am convinced, Bala convinced me. I think the simpler we keep it, it's okay. Maybe in this case, you can see that Denise approved himself. So that probably should not be allowed. But
I did not do that. I did not do approve. I guess it's automatic.
No, it automatically takes you as
I think that is automatic.
Actually, it takes the author as an approver. I don't know why.
Okay, I guess we can.
When I slash LGTM, I was expecting John to be the next one, but then it suddenly got merged. So I have no idea.
Right, because Prow requested John and Stephen to approve. So what happened that only Stephen approved and it was accepted? It's okay, you know, again, I'm saying it's not a big deal at all because, you know, in a production environment, every commit has to be perfect. We are not in a production environment. So every commit does not have to be perfect. If it moves us forward, that's great. And there could just be another commit after that, another pull request with fixes. I think that's acceptable to me.
So here it looks like due to the bug it got merged. Probably if you configure Pro properly, it will not happen. Is that the right understanding, Tal? Because
I think so. I think the only fix I would want is that it won't use a self-approval. I think that's the only thing that I would consider a bug here. People should not be able to approve themselves, but I don't know enough about how to do this.
I registered a PR on a different repo, on the docs repo this morning, and when I pushed it approved. It came up as being approved by me, even though I hadn't even though all I did was push it. I was was pushed it from our own repo. So it seems to be set to automatically approve from the author, whatever way it's set up.
Yeah, I think probably we will we'll work on this report to make Pro proper. That's what obviously we'll do this sprint. There is we also I think Stephen and I already requested Rado on this one, I guess. That is that.
But if you want to try it out on the docs one, I have a PR up there, and it probably doesn't matter that much. I mean, it's just a list of some resources for people learning. So it might be kind of a safe place to try that if you want.
Click on the owner's file. Actually, the owner's file will say who are the ones with the merge access.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay.
It's only those four. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but Dennis is not listed as an approval, but it was still accepted. So
yeah, some bug actually. So Dennis, if I may ask,
sure.
How did it take you a week or 2 days or 1 day to push this PR to work on everything?
Well, I have two iterations, and I first submitted PR last week, and it was failing because of easy CLA, and then I discovered it's better to rework some stuff there, and roughly 1 week, I would say.
Okay.
I was working on. But also you should understand that a lot of code from here, it was written by Steven for one summit. So I just took that stuff, I reworked, I added some features which we discussed, and then pushed it here. For instance,
that means Steven and you are probably the most familiar with this code, right? In general.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. So the point in code reviews I was trying to make, the point was if somebody takes a month or 1 week, even for a reviewer to come up to speed will also take some time. A PR cannot just be approved in 1 or 2 days, is what I'm saying. If people are reviewing, you see, it takes time. So just making a point here.
Absolutely, Vish. I totally agree. I requesting the whole team members to take time to review and also use it as a learning opportunity. But anyway, I think probably we'll fix this the Pro issue on this repo, and then probably Charlie can.
Yeah, I think this was a technical issue. I wanted to review this, but it happened so quickly that I didn't get a chance between the PR and the approval. But again, nobody intended it to be this way, so it was just an accident. But it's okay. It gives us an opportunity. Well, one good thing, I do think this was good in a way, because now we actually do have code in the repo, the Free5PC repo, and this could be useful for the other people working on the other issues to look at it. However, we're going to be copying and pasting a lot, so I really want this PR to be good, so it will be used as a best practice for the other one. So what I want to suggest now is that, Denise, if you can take control, maybe share the screen and go over the code and maybe kind of walk us through it and make sure that we're all up to speed.
Sure. Can I share then?
Yeah, let me unshare mine.
When doing this, Wim has his hands raised, please.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just in the chat. It seems that also the code is not aligned with the new CRD specs. So that means that
that CRD is spec is is more generic, you know, and for instance, in 3.5GC, when I was looking, it doesn't have BGP, right? So,
but even if the spec has it, it doesn't mean you have to comply to it, right? So I mean, you can, those fields are omit empty, so you can omit them. But all the things, the reason we spend some time on the spec is to ease the whole cycle. So if we have code that is not fully following our new design, then I think it creates more problems going forward. I rather have everything checked in according to the new design than otherwise we are going to create issues going forward.
We can,
or maybe we have to probably evolve the design, because in this case it seems like we probably, if you do it again, the BGP piece would probably be a vendor extension or generic extension rather than actually part of UPF deployment. But you know, I mean, things.
Okay, but then we have to comment on that. We have to comment on that, Stephen. If we are not happy with that design, and we should comment that rather than just checking in code, because we are working on that CRD. So everything you get from us will be aligned with that. So that's the contract between us. So if we don't follow each other, then we will create problems with integration going forward.
It's a good point, Wim. So I think we should create a new issue, maybe, Stephen, to evolve that. But I think that should be closed before this. But you know, for now, we have what we have. But it's true. We should have maybe create an issue to evolve that.
Yeah, we should. Yeah,
then,
obviously we should reconcile. Yeah.
Well, I think that the best thing is just to first then design it, you know, like, you know, CRDs, SMF, like IMF and UPF, and then start coding, right? Because like what we did here,
that was the earlier issues that was supposed to sequence it that way. But I guess UPF is a bit of an exception because the code's already there. So it's just more like, hopefully the code being there would allows the SMF and AMF team to also merge things quickly. But yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I guess no, because there are not so many things in similar, like DNS capacity is there, like pools, you know, but interfaces, some types, they're completely different, right? So it will not work. It has to be reworked.
Yeah, we changed it, Dennis, because of the fact that the whole structure was a bit very hard to parse and act upon. So that's why we changed.
I see. So, well, I was not part of the discussions, and when we started working, on UPF, kind of, I understood that like we have a base as like, you know, that one summit, and it has to be like, you know, enhanced, right? And this is what I actually did. And of course, like if it has to change, we can do changes. Anyways, just quickly to go through some features which which we added. So it has that like check in not existence.
You increase Zoom a little bit, please.
It's already 125. Is it better now?
It's better, thank you.
So like, I check in not existence. It does it. So basically, I'm looking in annotations, attach it to the like UPF deployment, and look for them if they exist in the namespace. If they don't exist, I requeue like reconciliation for 10 seconds, something like that. Then like when UPF deployment is created, we use like static image for the time being, but the idea is to add this image config. So, and image config will be simple map with like UPF, IMF, SMF images, and then like it has to go here actually. We're going to talk about image config a little bit later, I guess, but I have an idea how to actually, because this will be different controller, and we need to contact that controller to look resources for that controller from here. So basically, any change in image config, it has to trigger reconciliation in UPF, for example, SMF or IMF deployment as well. So there is a trick for that stuff.
And it's maybe a quick question, if I may. I just
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Image config, how are you going to get it? Is it through the package?
Well, it should be a CR. That's what I understand, right?
Which one? The image config? Yeah, it would be more like it's an extension. We have no package API. in the workload cluster. So everything needs to be loaded onto
yeah, so it will be as like here, like it will be another CR.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, then we have to, because we have created blueprint packages at the moment which do not contain this.
It doesn't exist yet, but it like we probably have.
We haven't done any coding to interpret it anyway. Yeah, at this point, this is the one summit John's idea to split it off type thing. So it's pretty.
I wrote today like quickly controller for that stuff, but like, it's not checked in. So like, but it's very simple because like controller doesn't have to create anything. It's just kind of it has to create a consistent map like inside it, which can be checked. So should be not just.
There is a blueprint package checked in Free5GC examples. Maybe it's best to create a PR there because that's what John uses as a baseline to do his work, and we are using the same to do the specialization. So if we need an additional resource, we better add that to the package so that everybody knows about it. Okay.
Okay, so it has to be added here. Okay, there.
There is the if I'll share the link. Yeah.
Please,
actually, yeah, that's true. I have an issue not against UPF, against SMF to push stuff over to Free5GC packages. So I guess I when I was filing issues, I missed the image config. So yeah, that should be
my suggestion is that if image config doesn't exist, there could still be a default. So whatever.
Yeah, so right now it's just hard coded default. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have actually Denise and I talked about it last week too. We haven't figured out how to coordinate between the two, because if you update your image config, that changes the deployment, and we have to reapply the deployment. But the deployment should be owned by this particular controller. So we don't want like two different controllers writing deployments at the same time. So we should funnel that into a single thing. I think he found some interesting.
So that is like what I'm going to talk like a little bit later. So yeah, like in the controller itself, so like we are like looking for like if there is no deployment, so it's kind of it just guns, and we are looking for like existing object like config map and deployment, and then if deployment exists, the first thing which I do is synchronizing status. And like basically the available processing or reconciliation statuses, I am copying them from underlying deployment, because there are two more statuses like peering and ready, which depend on the application readiness. And I don't have right now means to query applications to check if BGP is up, if like, there is some traffic going. So like that is, let's say, like it will be part of the, let's say, one of the issues, or I don't know, sprint.
So actually Saga has his hands up. So I'm guessing, Wim, you already had your questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I will lower it.
Yeah, Wim was first, I think, yeah.
Go ahead, Saga.
It was a leftover, sorry, the leftover.
Okay, sorry. So what I want to ask is that what is the rationale behind using this image config? Why can't we add that in the normal PRD?
So I originally had it as part of UPF deployment. So John said that this is so a couple of things. So you originally had it as a map string, and then John hated this because it's not Kubernetes convention. So we kind of split it off, and right now it is so between different vendors there are different lists of images that pertains to a UPF deployment. So for some it could be like 10. For UPF it's only one. But for Free5GC is only one, so it's technically it's a vendor thing if you want to fix it, but then you can also kind of make it into a flexible map. So that was the idea. The idea is different vendors would have a different definitions, if you will.
Okay.
But you're assuming here that, well, I guess it's already decided it's okay, but
it's not decided actually. So it was a very rushed thing that we push out during ONE Summit. But then, obviously it's not, the code isn't processing it anyway.
So I think it could be the thing is that this is so specific to Free5GC this controller, right? It's not as if this controller could be used by another vendor and they'll just throw in their own images and it'll work.
Yeah, but then the CLD, this UPF deployment CLD is supposed to be used across different vendors. So that was the idea.
Right.
The logic to process UPF deployment is specific to 3.5GC, but then hopefully the custom resources is being used.
Right, but I think instead of like a generic image config, there could be an extension called 3.5GC, and in that we'll put everything that's specific.
Yeah. So that's always been the idea. Yes. Yeah. Moving forward, that's always been the idea.
But yeah, I don't see any harm in having it image config right now. But the thing is, if we want to add more things, well, we can add more extensions too. But anyway, I feel like this is not the place to discuss the the CRs. So if it's been decided on, we can just go with it.
Yeah, Wim, go ahead.
Oh, but I don't think we decided on this part, by the way, and I agree with you. Probably better do the reference right now, right? So so in other words, have a CR there that is 3.5GC, put stuff in there, and we just refer to it in UPF deployment. It's way better design than having two independent CRs, because how does the operator know which one to look for?
Oh, well, I think the extension should be, in the meta model.
Correct. So and we can already do that, I think, right now. So we can already.
So the code today, well, not the code today. The code that I used to write earlier, it looks for other objects in the same namespace, the same name, but then the operator knows which kind it's supposed to look for. So that's the trick. That's why we didn't.
Yeah, but the problem is, it's a bit tricky. But we better. For me, spending a bit of time on having the UPF deployment right or the NF deployment right is not bad, because our goal is also to try to reuse that going forward and not having to reinvent that CR all the time, right? So we rather do it. Nothing is 100% correct anyhow, but at least with the knowledge we have right now, do it in the right possible way that we think is the best future safeness, and then we see how it holds the line, right, going forward. But rather than doing something quick and dirty.
So I suggest calling this 3.5GC UPF, the CR, something like that. And for now, it's just it's just an image name. Actually, that's all it is.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And that's fine, right? That's okay. And then we refer to NF deployment, and that's it. Yeah.
And in the future, it's a placeholder. So in the future, there might be more properties other than image.
Correct. Yeah.
So Denise, I think, was just going on this point right here with the runtime controller to show how you can actually track other CRs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So here there are a couple of directories. Yes. So there's 4 in owns. 4 it looks for it's UPF deployment itself, and owns you can reference objects which are created by this controller, but not UPF deployment. For instance, we are creating deployment, and so we can watch it. But there is one more thing which has to be done, is we need to set a controller reference. It creates this owner reference inside this deployment. So it points to UPF deployment, and whatever, if some status changes for underlying deployment, it triggers reconciliation here.
I see.
So, and this is how I get, for instance, status of the deployment, and I go here, to synchronize statuses. Otherwise, I'm not able to catch it. And what I wanted to say, to show as well, for instance,
so you're watching the deployment too. So where do you you don't reconcile, I guess, but where do you get? Do you have a callback?
No, here is just kind of whenever status changes for the deployment, it calls this reconciliation.
It's automatic, Steven. The controller runtime does it for you. It does it automatic on owns.
So so that's UPF deployment. So UPF deployment changes, obviously, that would you get triggered. But then even for deployment,
we'll add another 4. Right?
No, you can only have 1 4. You can only have 1 4. What you can do, you can
multiple
add a watch.
owns.
You can have multiple owns, or you can do a watch of something that you don't create yourself, which is
watches.
Exactly.
Sorry,
exactly. here we are saying what exactly we are watching for. For example, it can be image, like, you know, workload, nephew, image config, right?
Okay, so that's a handler. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then there is a handler which shows, like here we need to have a function which returns objects which we are going to reconcile, and it has to return this like UPF deployment in this specific namespace.
Okay.
So
right now, what OMS does is if a deployment changes, you get hit by the reconcile get invoked.
Yes. Yeah.
Deployment is pretty generic though. Is it one specific deployment?
All yes, it's one specific deployment which we create here. So, but OWNs can manage or you know, to watch only the objects which are created inside this controller itself. Image config, for example, it's not created by this controller, so it has to be watched by through the watches.
So this is part of the controller runtime magic, which I don't like. It just does too many things automatically. But yeah, I'll just point out, you know, if we add a watches for that free
image
5G
control,
whatever we call it.
Yeah, whatever.
It might be obvious, but the design has to make sure that, you know, it looks for the owner, the UPF deployment that actually points to it, right? Because remember, there can be several UPF deployment instances, right? Not just one CR.
So for
obvious to everybody.
This one I have tested with 2 UPFs in 2 different namespaces, and actually it works. Like, so like it updates only the right one, because like here you specifically set the reference, right? So they kind of they have different references as like UPF and deployment, and they're living in different namespace. And yeah.
I see.
Yeah, and it adds a zillion annotations too. Anyway, whatever.
I mean, it's amazing magic. Actually, it's pretty cool.
But also, like what documentation says, actually, these 4 in OWNs, they're using watchers under the hood. So like it's just kind of there is a scaffold, like, you know, some kind of basic function for the stuff which can be templated or automated, let's say, and create a new directive.
Yeah. Sagar, you have your hand up?
Yeah, sorry, another quick question. Because I'm also working in the exactly same thing, but with another framework. So just was asking that 2 questions. When you said that you're going to change the deployment, so that means manually editing the deployment object? That means if you manually edit it, then it will change?
If you manually edit it, of course, but for instance, if deployment, if pod fails, so replica set like also like kind of signals to deployment that pod fails, status changes, and it triggers reconciliation here, like in our UPF deployment, and then I catch that status here and put our UPF deployment as failing as well.
Okay.
You see, it's not. If manually, well, it depends. You need to change the status, because if you, for instance, only just scale, like but deployment stays available. Nothing nothing triggers here.
Okay, and another, I saw somewhere you were adding finalizers. Will we gonna add finalizers on the objects which are created by the controller? Let's say the CM config map service account, or by, let's say, deployment, and if I try to manually delete the deployment, it does not let me do that. Is it mandatory?
This is a queue builder thing.
It works. It's definitely so, because like I have like finalizer, and like while like this config map and deployment available, finalizer is not deleted like from the object, and then it's kind of it keeps looping. Once they're gone, then like it should
allow it, right? I mean, your controller owns that object, and then that's the whole point of doing finalizer.
Yeah,
I would hope.
Queue builder creates some boilerplate code to handle that. So most people just keep
the problem when you develop all this stuff is rightly put this reconciliation calls, somewhere you requeue, somewhere you for instance here, once I create the object, I do requeuing after 30 seconds, just to make sure that things are set up in various places. So you can requeue immediately just as true, or requeue after. And
deployment deletion takes time. So yeah.
Yeah, and also login. I think like what is crucial is to add some login. Otherwise, something is happening, you don't have no idea what is happening actually. Login helps. Yeah, well, apart from that, this controller doesn't follow the spec which we have here.
We can try to see what we need and reconcile that for sure.
By the way, do you create a manual ownership over the config map too?
Manual ownership? No.
So I
because I don't expect config map to be updated manually.
Right, but you want it to be garbage collected, right? If you delete the UPF deployment, you want everything that the controller created.
That's what the finalizer does, right?
Yeah. Is done here.
Oh, well, you don't need to do that if you add ownership. So if you just add the own, the runtime controller will do that automatically for anything that you create, just like you create a UPF deploy. So that would be the correct way, because Kubernetes will do. So even if you delete your controller, right? Let's say your controller is not running and somebody deletes the UPF deployment, it will delete everything that you created. Kubernetes will take care of that. So yeah, if you add owns here, another owns for config map, that should just automatically work.
Okay, fair enough. Let me try it. Actually, it's a good point. Like, if we had this in comments inside the pull requests, I would update it. Anyways, okay, cool. Let me test it, because without owns it doesn't happen actually.
Right.
And I was reading in the documentation that Kubernetes, KubeBuilder does not suggest to do actually this manually.
Yeah, I'm actually we decided to follow KubeBuilder, and KubeBuilder puts the finalizer code in there. I'm not a fan of finalizers, because the whole point of finalizer is that you need a controller, an operator up to manage it. But if you delete the operator, the finalizer will stay there forever, and nobody can delete the UPF deployment.
Yes.
It's very painful. It's very painful. So
yeah, you need to patch object. It happens sometimes, and
finalizer, in my view, is something that you shouldn't automatically add. Only add it if you're trying to solve a very, very specific issue. But KubeBuilder just adds it automatically for you, because it just
no, it's not actually. I added them.
Yeah, we have to add it physically.
I think, in my view, finalizer is not added by KubeBuilder automatically. It's the code that does
it's added by the application.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
I actually have there control utils that add finalizers up there.
I agree with you that owner reference should be the thing, but finalizer is, I think, in my view, is there if you want to clean up something that is associated with yourself. That's where the finalizer comes in. It's basically to propagate or to help ensure that propagation of deletion is done, because
it's to allow you to insert your own cleanup code, right? Because deleting objects might not be enough. You might need to release resources.
No, I mean the way we use it right now in here is obviously ohms and finalizers are kind of doing the same thing if you're using ohms. So yeah, so maybe it's not needed. Maybe there are use case for it, but then for now,
I'm going to test it.
Yeah, if ohms works, then obviously you don't need it. Then that'll be fine.
I'm in favor of removing finalizer if we don't need it, because it just clutters the code at this point. In future use case, I mean, it's easy enough to add. If in a future use case we have to write a controller that needs to do more serious cleanup, I mean, we can add it. It's not hard. But
I do want to say that even this piece of code, I kind of copy from other best practice KubeBuilder based controllers.
I think that's why I assumed KubeBuilder creates it automatically.
It doesn't create, but then almost everyone who follows what you see online would probably just put it in. But it's probably if ohms works, then we don't need it. It's okay.
Even just to clarify, it's owner reference, not ohms, right? Like you saw in the phone, and it's owner references that
owner reference. Okay.
Right.
Well, owner reference it's set underneath, but owns is
the builder.
No, but owns is the thing that does the watch and stuff like that. But setting the owner reference to an object you create, you have to still do yourself, right?
Right.
But this is how it is done.
Set controller.
Yeah, owner reference.
Yeah. And then it is done by like the owner reference. There is a method behind this one which calls like set owner reference, something like that.
But I think we have to. I just want to clarify. Owner reference is to do is to basically say this object is actually owned. It's a child resource of a parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the garbage collector kicking in. The own that you see at the bottom is to get the watch, right? So and they are not related to each other.
Oh,
so they independent things. So they
so the only thing is when you
but it does not work. If I set only owns without this one, it doesn't.
No, I agree. But so the own is optional, so it's not mandatory.
Okay.
So they are optional components. Is what I'm trying to say.
All right. So I'll fix what I said before.
The question is, if once you do config map and deployment at the same time, does the sequence of removal, is it something that we can control, or just control runtime is just going to randomly remove one before the other?
Yeah, Kubernetes cleans them up just automatically for you. So what it does, the way it works, and by the way, this is the only thing in Kubernetes that allows relationships between resources. This is the only thing that it supports built in. So it just goes over every resource it has in the cluster, and it looks to see if there's an ownership. And if it was orphaned, if the owner no longer exists, it just deletes the object. That's all it does.
Okay.
And it happens quite slowly because it has to go.
Because it doesn't matter if the deployment has a reference to the config map. So they probably remove the config map first.
I think everything should be. I think the owner for both the config map and the deployment should be UPF deployment, because if you delete UPF deployment, you expect all the resources that were created.
Should be all removed. So just want to make sure that it doesn't have any interdependencies that make the sequence looks weird. Anyway.
Right. I mean, you can create multiple levels of ownership. It's all fine as long as the parent.
No. I mean, we don't want to complicate it that much, but yeah.
We don't. This is, by the way, a very tiny issue, but it's just to clean up all the resources. So.
Well, it's nice to have. I mean, it would be nice to say on the management cluster, remove UPF deployment and really remove the deployment, not just the object.
Correct.
So it's a really nice thing to have, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, config sync, which we use to create UPF deployment, and also create the extensions, right? So, by the way, the extensions I think should also be owned, or I don't know. We can talk about that because we.
So if we only have one controller, which is what we're moving toward right now, for all the extension objects, then obviously they should all be owned by this UPF deployment.
But if we do that, that's like package specialization should make sure to create that ownership link. But the whole thing is that we haven't really discussed the model.
No, we cannot, because the owner reference is a Kubernetes API thing, and we don't apply it to the API.
It's not. It's just in metadata. You add it in the metadata. You can definitely add it explicitly.
I mean, a point could be made on that. Yeah, sure.
Well,
yes, I have another question. If you like, can we move this discussion about references into the not issue, but pull request, whatever is going to be open to make this one better, right? So, I have a question. When when I submitted this PR, so types for this controller, they are allocated locally in this repository, which is not correct, obviously, right? So we have deployment types, and this deployment types, they have this schema builder registry. So register, and when I put the same file into the API repository, where it should be located, right? I cannot use that schema register because it doesn't exist here. So what is the way to
really
well, it just complains like unit test or go lint, they give an error. And
can you just give them a full path?
Actually, I have not tried that stuff. So I know that I looked I look what Wim did, and he has a var here with specific types.
Correct.
So like, I'm just wondering, like, is it the way? I have never done it, so I don't know. Like, that's why I'm asking. So if it is a way to do,
that's my method of getting around, getting around it and have all the tools still work. Now, of course, if you build a controller, the init function you have to then locally put in your controller, so you can do an empty file that does the init. But so this is basically to make it easier for other people to look up stuff. So that's what this is. It's not to make there is a group. So this is actually purely for lookup stuff. So there is another file. If you go to the group version file. Yeah, that one. This has that side, but what I'm not doing here is the initialization of the schema. So that is still something that you do locally within your controller.
Okay, so if I do it, I will do it inside my controller, right?
Yes. Yeah, because that's the initialization of the schema which you give to the controller runtime to give the controller access to all the types that you have.
Yeah, I wonder though if we can make this better by maybe introducing a function that you give the function your schema builder and it will fill it up for you.
Yeah, great, but you have to do that in the controller tile, right?
Well, I have an idea of how to solve this. I'll just
okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is what I did is purely the type stuff with all the group version is in the API.
Yeah.
And how you instantiate it is a local matter. That's how I looked at it. You could add a function maybe in the API spec.
Yeah, to help instantiate it, so we just don't have to repeat it. But so any controller that wants to use our types already have a utility function that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's a small thing, but it's just a little cleaner. Okay. Dennis says, are any other issues you want to go through over the code? All right, let's
assume that's enough.
Yeah. So I'll let me look back on our.
Actually, Denny's dropped out.
Oh yeah, he did say that he was double fisting. Okay. So he has another meeting. So let's go back to the board. So Bala, I know you wanted to do some cleanup of sprints. Oh, we're already in sprint 2. You already did it.
Yes, we already. Yeah, there are enough items in progress also. If you see in every board because of the work, I mean, we could if somebody's picking to work which is in to-do list, I think that's fine. If you want to do that at all in this meeting.
No, it's okay. So On2 is not here today, right? So so the people working on the other network functions, I don't know what the update from them is, but we have the UPF code in. So Dennis and I'll coordinate with him to improve that code according to what we discussed today. And that could be kind of the boilerplate to use for the other ones.
Yeah, so that's the goal. That's why I think this needs to be merged. I mean, not as quickly as it happened, but then I want to merge it earlier so that the other folks will be able to use that as a reference.
Yeah.
Obviously, Dennis did a lot of change from my seed, if you will, and then that would be the best practice to move forward. And it's a consistency across all the other controllers.
Right, I agree.
So Stephen, what is the? I mean, I know. I mean, it's a huge merge. I understand. I also understand it's almost we are treating that as a seed code, right?
Yeah.
But you had one concern about the test coverage on that one. Did that improve with this merge?
Oh no, so I had no unit tests. So right now it has unit tests. So that's an improvement.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's look at the unit test. There's not.
Well, unit test depends on how the code is structured too. So I mean, the core functions of manipulating the config map and deployment object creations are something that are separated functions and could be unit tests. The other things that are generated by controller, by QBuilder is probably not something we could easily unit test unless you mock the heck out of it, which is also something we can do.
Got it. Yeah. And then some are generated. So since I didn't go through this PR myself, so there are some tests now.
Yeah, some
tests.
Tests,
actually, and Yeah, that would require its own review. There's just a lot going on here, and I don't really understand I don't know what this word is.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Thanks. I think basically, I mean,
yeah, I mean that's the agreement. Right? We don't merge and we don't approve until a unit test is in place. Coverage we're not at this point we're not enforcing any coverage.
So Dennis isn't here, but Stephen, maybe you can enlighten me. There's this thing called the UPF wrapper. And,
yeah, so that's the so the orange guys actually built a wrapper as an execution. So what the wrapper does is internally obviously invokes UPF, the binary, but then before then it sets up the IP tables and create that interface, the tunnel interface, the GDPU tunnel interface.
Right.
So I'm basically following that. So that becomes a config map, and then the config map, when it's mounted, the deployment on a container spec invokes the wrapper.sh as an entrance point.
Here it is. Yeah. So it's added as a command to the container.
That's
right.
So it's an executable, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not going to work without this stuff.
Dennis is right.
Yeah, sorry, I guess it's not going to work without wrapper, without the second.
Yeah, not the way this is structured. Yeah, it wouldn't work.
Okay. I wonder. I understand the way this is structured, but can't we? I don't like this very much. I wonder if we could actually rebuild the images with this inside instead of adding a wrapper.
We can. I mean, the other way would be building this as an init container, and then invoke UPF directly.
Yeah, that's a good point too. But even that's a little bit more complex. I mean, we have control over these images. I mean, we're using the image that Orange created, but we have all their code for creating. So that's another thing too. I don't want us. I want this library to also be able to create the images, right? I don't want us. So this is the operators, but we also want the images for the operators here and their code. At least the Docker files that create those images.
Oh, okay. Is that a make build somewhere in the make files?
But then, like,
make Docker push or make Docker build.
If you create an image, you know how then image config knows or whatever knows about which image is created.
Yeah, so we have to take that as like a single, not a one shot, but then everything needs to be coordinated. If you want to grab the images, the image config needs to be in place. If you want to build the operator image, then we have a Docker hub for Nepio, so we should probably point it to that.
Yeah, I think somebody asked too about where our images are located. So we
so Lucy gave me a path before. I just kind of forgot.
It was me because I need image path in this operator in make file where actual controller will be pushed, because right now it's being pushed into, let's say, my Docker space.
Okay, but by the way, regarding make files, has SIG Release really decided that we're going to be using make? New make?
So make file, I think Vish has pushed the make file into the SIG. Probably we should try to use the same thing.
I use the same one, so it's that file which was used by
okay, I'm asking that because I really hate make. If we decide to use make, we can, but do we really need to have to use make? Or
do you want to do a Docker build, Docker push? That's like
I don't know what to do. I think SIG Release should decide how we build everything, because that's part of our process too, right? To build the images, push them to the inventory, and then test them, right? So that's part of our CD process that SIG Release owns. I guess SIG Release doesn't care because it can just run a command. So if the command is make, deploy or something like that, that can work. But I wonder if we really want to standardize on those clunky, awful make files for everybody.
Well, make it around a long time, and it's been many people have tried to get rid of it.
Well, I would say let's put this as a SIG Release discussion item, maybe, and decide together what we want to do. I think there
not that I like make, but at least people know it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like why use bash when there are better shells, right? You use what's available and familiar. Sometimes that's the best choice, right?
But Of all the things that I used at the beginning of my career, Make is probably the one thing that's still being used in this project. It's that old, like, you know.
I mean, we can also look at, you know,
I'm not supporting it or not. So I'm not saying yes or no. It's just I'm saying it's there.
I totally understand. As I point out, if it's familiar, it can be used. It's just it's not fun, and it's not really designed for this. It's designed more for compilation and other things that we're not really. Anyway, let's put that, I suggest, as an issue for SIG release to discuss how we're, you know, we can also just have build scripts, you know, just shell scripts that do the building.
Yeah.
I'm often in favor of that. Okay, I might create a few more issues for our board. We have 3 minutes left. Anybody want to throw in something to discuss?
I just wanted to mention that please create an issue about Pro to add more jobs to do tests.
Yeah, so Rado already put a patch. Yeah.
So basically, yes, we are coordinating that. I think I just put a message. I did not check it. I think Rado might have been working on it already.
Okay.
Yeah. So I push OK to test, and then I ask for retest. So hopefully that check will be done on that PLC.
So new issues. Build operator container images somewhere.
So the other thing, last 2-3 minutes you could do, Carl, is if people are looking to pick up some work, there are some work in the to-do list. By the way, if you're planning to share the board, I am not seeing anything. Did you intend to share your desktop, Tal?
Oh yeah, what is it sharing? What are you seeing in my share right now?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay, great.
Nothing.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I was doing all this
blank,
stuff.
we've been staring at a blank screen for a while.
Oh, I wish somebody had told me. Okay, let me try again.
That's why. That's why.
We thought it is intended to be a blank screen. So
I don't know. Actually, I saw his screen, so he
now?
used to.
Yeah. Can you see now?
Yeah. Now,
yes.
now it's okay. Yeah. Now. It's
so
okay.
Let me help. Which new issues we said? So this is the 3 I remember.
Yeah. Check out the finalizer. Test it out to see whether or not we can eliminate that.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's issue or like it's kind of discussion for yeah. Well,
we can put on the issues we can discuss, and we don't really have to do
it.
If it turns out to be not workable. Closing of a PL doesn't mean it has to have code. You can always close it because it's irrelevant.
Or image config. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I know we're out of time, but just anything else we discussed that I forgot here?
Yeah. Also, I think like we need to review review tests and also to align with like this CR with yeah.
Yeah, we have to align the CR with the CRV spec, I think.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, that's probably the big one.
Yeah, I mean, all of these can be separate issues too. I think that might be a good idea. Okay, we have a lot to do, but I think all of these independently are doable. So maybe even different people can pick them up. I'll put them up as different issues. And yeah, okay, good. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dennis. That is good progress, actually. So
yeah. This is very
Dennis, thank you so much. That's a big piece of work. Thank you so much.
It's a start, right, for discussion.
No, but it is good. There's something to work with. Absolutely.
All right. I think there's another meeting. Some of you might want to join. So thank you, everybody, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.